Hey, it's Craig Syracusa, and welcome to another episode of Walk in Faith, the show where we go beyond the image and we discover who our guests really are. You might know them from TV, the big screen, or even the world of sports, but do we really know who they are as a person? Do we know what motivates them? Do we know what inspires them? Well, that's what we're here to find out.
Today, crooner Charlie Romo is joining me. A little on the young side to sing like Sinatra, he's here to tell us why this style of music is so important to preserve and why it's his passion. Stay tuned and walk with us.
Oh, well, I roll from town to town.
Charlie, thank you so much for coming. We're at Elliott Mount Carmel. Now, you and I know each other for several years. You've performed, at a lot of my events, diocesan events and youth events and on and on and on. But we've never actually sat and had a long conversation. It's always like, Charlie, sing the song, or what are you singing? But, I know you pretty well, but I wanted the audience and I wanted people in the diocese and throughout the country to know, who is Charlie Romo? You used to go by Romo? I know you changed
Romo.
it.
We changed it. Yeah, Charles Anthony Poveromo didn't seem to fit on a marquee, and plus Poveromo, if you break it up, it roughly translates to poor man in Italian, povere uomo. So we cut it in half and went with Charlie Romo.
So tell me, so before we get into, tell me everything. Like, I know we spoke on the phone the other day. Now tell me, when did you first realize that you wanted to be a performer?
Oh man, ever since I was a little kid, I was dancing and singing throughout the house, listening to songs made famous by the people who I sing their music now. So it's just always been a big part of my life, performing.
What type of music? I know you're a
crooner. Yeah, crooner, and kind of like a contemporary crooner. When you think of the word crooner, you think of like a middle-aged guy singing a lot of old love songs in a sentimental, soft, romantic way. But I feel like with my youth, I kind of put on my own twist with it, and at the end of the day, I'm really just trying to carry the torch and preserve this timeless music.
So when you were a kid, who introduced you to this music? Because when I was a kid, I really didn't listen to music from the 50s to the 60s or the 40s. Who introduced you to this type of music?
Well, my grandparents, first and foremost. Most grandparents, they take their kids to things like baseball games and that sort of thing, church maybe. I got dragged to doo-wop shows, and I listened to the music of like Jay Segal and the Tokens, Dion the Belmonts, Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers. And doo-wop, I guess, was really the genre that got me into that whole era of older classic music. And then as I got a little bit older, my voice developed and changed a bit, and I realized I was able to sing this type of music, with music that was made famous by Frank Sinatra, Bobby Darin, Tony Bennett, Dean Martin. I did a lot of my own research, and I told myself that this is what I wanted to do. That I wanted to carry the torch and sing that music.
Wow. So as a kid, you were able to relate to music, like you said, like Bobby Darin and Frank Sinatra?
Totally. I guess when I look back on it now, at still a young 22-year-old guy, but as a 7- and 8-year-old kid to listen to, for some reason I have the song Tears on My Pillow. It's an old like doo-wop, rock and roll type of ballad, but my parents used to laugh at me because it's such like a sad, like sentimental, like breakup song, and like they used to laugh at what is a 7-year-old kid doing, like singing these emotional songs. But I've always been kind of like a sentimental guy, and I've always been able to relate to a lyric that is definitely way advanced for my age, I guess.
So like an old soul.
Yeah, totally an old soul, sentimental, hopeless romantic, I guess.
So when you were a kid, you had a Walkman,
oh yeah.
How did you play this music? Like you would walk around, you hang out with your friends and play Bobby Darin?
Well, for sure. My parents had these 2 big speakers in my living room. I grew up in Borough Park in Brooklyn. Born in Maimonides Hospital. I went to PS 131. And my grandparents still live here in Brooklyn in Borough Park. Now I live in Staten Island. But they used to play on CDs, on even like cassette tapes. And I remember actually, you mentioned a Walkman. I remember, here's a funny story. I was in the 3rd grade. I was on a school trip on a yellow bus. I think we were going to the zoo or something. And I had my Walkman, and I was listening to a Ray Charles Greatest Hits album. And my teacher at the time, she asked what I was listening to. So she came over to me, she took the headphones, she put them in her ears, and she looked at me like I had 10 heads. And she's like, what are you doing listening to this stuff? And she was listening to Georgia on My Mind. beautiful, beautiful Ray Charles ballad. And, you know, she was shocked that an 8-year-old third grader was listening to this. So, and I loved it. Ray Charles was probably the first solo artist that got me into that whole style. But definitely the doo-wop, then Ray, and of course guys like Sinatra and Darren to come.
Yeah, I mean, I was introduced to the music later on, you know, as an adult. But as a kid, that really wasn't sort of the music that I would even relate to or be, I was attracted to. But it's interesting. And then, I mean, so like you said, you're 22 years old. I mean, you're a crooner. It's not common to see someone your age. Are there anyone else out there like you would compare yourself to? I know who would be some of the mainstream artists that would be a modern day crooner? For
sure, definitely. You know, as far as contemporary crooners go, you automatically think of somebody like a Michael Bublé.
Okay.
So much respect for what he's done. Has a beautiful family and is just so accomplished. Did a lot of great things. He slowed it down a little bit over the past couple of years, but I think he's making a big comeback, and I hope to see him, as I've seen him in concert many times. So he's definitely somebody who I look up to and would hope to follow in his footsteps. Somebody like a Harry Connick Jr., even like a Michael Feinstein. These are the people who I think are really, you know, carrying the torch after guys like Tony Bennett and the chairman of the board.
The chairman of the board is
Frank Sinatra. All blue eyes, yeah.
It's funny the way
you have a lot of nicknames. The Voice, it goes on forever.
It's funny the way you reference them. So now, okay, so now what's different between, say, you and, say, a Michael Bublé? I mean, do you write your own music, or do you mostly perform others?
I've written my own music. I've yet to record anything original that I've written. I have recorded a couple of original songs that I didn't write, but definitely sometime in the near future I want to experiment with that a little bit more. So mostly I've just been doing some covers. I haven't even recorded my own CD yet. So that's something that I'm working on now, and I'm really excited about. And but yeah, we got a long road to go, man.
I mean, you've been performing for how many years? And when was your first performance?
Well, my first, I guess, professional performance. I started doing this thing at 17 years old in Staten Island in restaurants. My dad and I would schlep my equipment, and I would just basically sing in any restaurant.
Anyone that'll let you.
Exactly, any restaurant that would hire me. Shout out to Pete from Aunt Butchie's. He was the first guy to hire me to sing. Then he went to Doc's, Cafe Del Mondo, all the restaurants in Staten Island, Brooklyn, Jersey, tri-state area. Then I started doing some private parties from there. And but when I first really started singing professionally in shows in front of people paying, you know, tickets to see me, was kind of in like the jazz cabaret circuit in New York City. When I first started working with live bands, I remember, you know, as an 18-year-old kid, I was so desperately wanting to perform with live bands. I was singing with these tracks for about a year or two, and I was like, you know, looking at YouTube clips of the greats, you know, Sammy Davis Jr. and all the Rat Pack performing with these huge orchestras, and I wanted that so badly. And I met my manager Bernie, who said, you know, I'm gonna put a band behind you. And so he introduced me to my late music director Barry Levitt, who played for so many greats, and I got to work with all of my heroes' musicians, including Bobby Darin's original drummer, Ronnie Zito, who played for him at the Copacabana in 1960, when Bobby Darin was my age. So it's really cool how some of that stuff comes full circle. And yeah, now I'm working with some of the greatest musicians in the world, and that's special.
Wow. When we come back, I have a few more questions for you.
Okay.
Be right back. Welcome back. So Charlie, you mentioned how at 17, 18 you would travel, your parents would take you. So when you decided to tell your parents, like, hey Dad, hey Ma, I want to be a singer or a performer, and especially deciding or picking the music, or maybe the music picked you, what was their reaction? Were they supportive? Were they, because it's a hard business. I mean,
it's not an easy business by any means, but the strong definitely survive, and I feel like the people who, you know, in this business there's gonna be a million no's for every yes. So the ones who are strong-minded, who truly believe in their gut that this is what they're meant to do, I feel like come out and succeed in the end. So that's kind of the attitude that you have to have. And as far as my parents go, they've been nothing but supportive. Ever since I was a little kid, I can't even remember a time where I've had to go to my parents and, you know, kind of ask them if this is something that they're okay with, just because they've always known that this is who I am, and they've been 110% supportive of that my entire life.
That's great. So tell me, you said your first performance was at the restaurants, and then
my first professional performance, I guess. Yeah.
So now you're 22, so you've been only doing this, say, professionally for a few years, right?
Yeah, since I'm 17. So what is that? 6 years.
But you've performed, I mean, at, you know, beyond church functions, Carnegie Hall. I mean,
that's right, yeah.
Were you at Lincoln Center as well?
Lincoln Center.
I mean, these are iconic spaces, and you have a lot of events coming up. But what was it like to walk out in Carnegie Hall, Lincoln Center, and you know your grandparents were there, right? Your family was there. I mean, tell me about that moment when you walked out on stage and you could see them, or you knew they were there, you felt their presence. What was that like?
You can't even put it into words, honestly. It's so special, and it's just the hard work pays off, and I don't know, it seems like the crowd goes on forever. I kind of established myself as like a jazz cabaret singer. I won a couple awards in Manhattan for doing that sort of thing, 100, 200 people. But when you look out into a crowd of thousands of people just really digging what you're doing, it's a special thing. And for them to not only appreciate the music, but appreciate a young guy like myself who is trying to carry the torch and respecting me as an interpreter of these great songs, that's really special.
And now, did you have a picture that you would be performing at Carnegie Hall?
Oh no, absolutely not. No, for sure, definitely not. It's always been a dream, a far-fetched dream, but the fact that it's happened is yeah, I can't even put it into words.
So now, because I know you said it's hard for you to sort of articulate. I mean, and your grandparents are very supportive. I know we were at an event last 2 weeks ago, a couple weeks ago.
Number one fans.
Yeah, in the front, and you always, you know, I saw your grandfather go up and give a note, and it was someone's birthday. But
absolutely.
What did you say to him afterwards? Like, what did you say to your parents? Like, I mean, because that's such a proud moment. Like, what did your dad say to you? Because he's always supportive. He's always around.
I don't even think I got a chance to talk to them because they're so busy talking to everybody else. My greatest PR people in the world are my father and my grandfather. So, you know, they're always thinking about me. They are my number one fans. They have so much love for me, and I have so much love for them. I don't know. I can't thank them enough for everything they've done for me. I would not be here if it wasn't for them and, you know, my mother and my grandmother. But yeah, they're just constantly supporting me. As far as what they said to me after the show, you know, great job. I'm always my own worst critic. So as soon as I come off the stage, I'm thinking of already what I can do better for the next show. But my family's always my number one fans, and they never have anything bad to say.
There's nothing wrong with trying to, you know, reach perfection, if you want to call it that.
Totally. I feel like
nothing wrong with that.
If I'm not my own worst critic, then how am I gonna get better? You know. So that's the way I look at it.
I mean, I definitely, when I hear you perform, especially it was a couple weeks ago, I mean, you're great. I mean, you know, you get such a great voice and you're so confident. I mean, being on stage, a lot of the people you're singing with are a lot older. I mean, the music is, you know, 20, 30, 40 years before you were born. So it's, and like you said, carrying the torch. Like, you know, people would be right away to judge you. Like, how could this young guy carry a torch or carry, the, you know, Frank Sinatra's torch or Bobby Darin? I mean, how does it make you feel internally? Are you concerned or?
Oh, no, I completely understand that. Because if I was on the other side of it, I would probably doubt this young skinny kid behind the microphone as well. So I put myself in that position, and I'm always conscious of that. I know that I have a lot to prove, and I know that I have, you know, based off maybe the way I look or whatever, my youth. Yeah, you can't judge a book by its cover, and I definitely think that that's something that always makes me feel pretty good at the end of the show when the doubters finally see that it's not an act, it's not a performance. This is who I am. It's a genuine thing. I'm not a impersonator. There's only one Frank Sinatra. I'm not an impersonator. I'm not a tribute artist. This music's in my blood. It's who I am. And like you said, I'm just trying to carry the torch.
And now to accomplish what you've accomplished, or to have this talent, this skill, it must have been a sacrifice, right? I mean, at 15 or 14, when kids are out playing or going out, what were you doing? I mean, there's no way you were out, partying or hanging out. I mean, tell me what you were doing when you were a kid.
Absolutely, for sure. There's definitely a lot of sacrifice that comes with, being successful in this business. But ever since I was a kid, I was always very, self-focused and motivated. I knew that this is what I wanted to do from a young age. So, even when I was in college, I was in a fraternity actually in college, and I dropped out of that whole thing because I knew it wasn't for me, and I knew that this is what I was meant to do, and I knew that a lot of that sort of thing was a distraction. In high school, a lot of kids playing sports, going out, having a good time, partying, and I was home practicing, listening to and watching on YouTube of all of my heroes, trying to pick up little things. And even when I was doing these things, like there's times where I was like, it might be fun to go out and have a little fun and loosen up a little bit. But I always stuck to my guns because I knew that there was something much bigger to come, and I'm still working towards that now. And it's still something that I'm always struggling with and trying to find a healthy balance with. but I know that the harder that I work, the more success will come. So
What do you think that is? Like, what do you think?
what do I think? What's
What do you
what's
think
to
your
come?
yeah, what's to come? I mean, because like, what do you think the ultimate plan is? Like, what is it? Like, what's success to you?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, that's something that I'm always thinking about and trying to figure out myself. But I think at this point, success to me was just having a healthy career that I can live off of, doing what I love, and sharing this music. Also, I've been doing some acting work now, which I'm really excited about. I just secured my first role in an upcoming streaming network streaming series. Yeah.
That's great.
Something that's going to be on Apple TV. They're coming out with their own streaming service, which I think there's more details to come in the future. I'm not allowed to say too much.
Don't say too much.
Yeah.
Well, when we come back, I have a few more questions for you, and I have some footage that we're going to show the audience of some of your older performances.
Cool.
Be right back. Welcome back, Charlie. We're almost done. I know you got a lot going on today, but you mentioned earlier how sort of this, like, this is what you were meant to do.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know that? Like, how do you know you're following your dream, or I mean, we both probably believe the same thing, that God sort of placed this in your heart, your talents, your skills, your ability. How do you know that? How do you know you weren't meant for something else?
Oh man, I just feel it in my heart. It's I feel like God gave me a talent, to sing, to act, to entertain. I'm an entertainer. Since I'm a little kid, I've been an entertainer, and I know that's who I am. And it's what I'm passionate about. Nothing else in this world makes me happier than making other people feel good. So if I can do that for a career for the rest of my life, who could ask for anything more?
And I agree. And I think the fact that you said for other people, that's something that I believe that if we, the gifts that we have, first of all, it's the gifts that we do the most, like, without any sort of, that's easy, like, without any sort of thought, it's sort of just, we're meant to do it. Like, you just know a gift, but
Absolutely.
Especially when you do it for somebody else. When your intentions are what you said about making other people happy.
Yes.
I mean, it helps us and it fulfills our soul and makes us feel good, but in the end, it's about making somebody else happy, bringing joy and entertainment to them.
Totally.
And how important is faith sort of to you as a performer, to you as a singer, as an actor now? How important is faith?
I mean, it's everything. Without faith, what do we have? So, I was raised Roman Catholic, all my sacraments up until this point, and I pray all the time, and I definitely feel like part of this whole thing, a lot of it has to do with the man upstairs. So I'm very grateful to him, and that's the mission for me, to really carry this. It's a mission. I want to carry the torch, but I want to do it so that I carry it for the next generation, so that I keep this alive. When I go and perform for these people who have listened to the original singers, they're so grateful for that. This is part of American culture, and I just want to keep that going.
You talk a lot about carrying the torch. Now, you performed with, like you said, artists and legends. When they first meet you or they perform with you, what do they usually say to you afterwards or on your website?
Well, you know what? It's kind of like the same thing. They're not expecting this young guy to be able to do what he's doing, I guess. But I've been fortunate enough to work with musicians who've played for Frank Sinatra, Tony Bennett, Bobby Darin, Barbra Streisand, and the list goes on. But recently I actually had Duke Ellington, the jazz legend, Duke Ellington's granddaughter, Mercedes Ellington, come to one of my shows. And but she wrote me an email after the show, and it really touched my heart. You could see her quote on my website, but basically it said something along the lines of, she couldn't believe how genuine and the way I interpreted these songs and how true it was. Because there's so much depth to these songs, and I feel like that's what really shocks people, that I'm not an impersonator, I'm not a tribute artist, that this is truly who I am. And for somebody like Mercedes Ellington to recognize that, that's what it's all about.
Wow. And you mentioned, okay, so let's just be realistic, right? So this music is sort of for an older demographic, right? Not my generation or even generation before. Do you
certainly not mine.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I can't believe you're only 22. I always think I'm younger. I'm like, no, actually, I'm getting old. I got to get some dye, but
and you're good.
Honestly,
good.
like, okay, let's say you make it or you're close to making it. Like, would you ever compromise and say, you know what? I tried the crooner. Now I'm going to move into sort of modern day or mainstream music. Like, do you ever see yourself doing that?
I love music of all styles. I definitely think that the whole crooning through the Great American Songbook, that's always what runs deepest in my heart. That's always who I am. But I love music of all eras. You know, I just bought tickets to a Kiss concert, believe it or not.
Wow.
So, not that I would sing any of their,
I was trying to say, what are you gonna say?
of their songs. Maybe Beth. That's kind of a nice ballad. But I love music of all styles and genres. Unfortunately, I had tickets to see Paul Anka this week. He canceled
You mentioned that. I was like, maybe I should know who he
canceled
is.
the show,
He
man.
did?
Yeah, unfortunately. But we'll go see him in May at the Westbury Theater. But anyway, I love music of all styles and genres. So, and even songs that I've written, believe it or not, none of them have been in the style of what I've been doing. No, they haven't been in the style of Sinatra or Darren. They've been mostly contemporary songs, stuff that you might kind of hear on the radio. So I have a passion for all music, but this is the music that I feel like is the best music that was ever written. That I want to keep it alive. Thank you. And but I don't think that every now and then I could throw in something different.
Yeah, and you mentioned it, and I'm curious why you haven't recorded your own album. I mean, the fact that you've written music, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for, Charlie?
You know, I read a fortune cookie recently.
Okay, let me write this down. The fortune cookie.
I don't remember how it was worded, but it said something along the lines of, you know, if you wait too long for the boat to dock or something, you already missed it, or something like that. And as someone who's kind of like a perfectionist, I know the amount of time and money that it's going to take to put something of, you know, great quality together. And I just feel like at this time now is when now I'm in a position that I could finally make that happen, of something, and create something that I'm proud of. So I'm looking forward to that.
Good.
But I haven't done it earlier because I knew if I did, it wouldn't
be right.
It wouldn't be right. So I think now is the time to finally make it right, and hopefully release it to the world, and we'll see what happens.
I think that's a great idea, because the fact that you said, and I've heard you perform plenty of times, I know how talented you are. I think it's something you should do. So now, before we end, just two questions. One is, you said about carrying the torch. Who is someone that you wish you could meet, or that's out there that would be able to help you? I mean, who's the person? Like, who would you want to meet?
Oh man, there's definitely a couple. Two off the top of my head. Definitely the great Tony Bennett. He's the last great American voice. And at 93 years old, he's still traveling the world, still sounds better than ever. He's somebody who I actually had the opportunity to not even say a word to, but I shook his hand in the middle of his concert because I was good friends with his former piano player, Billy Stritch. And he told him a little bit about me, how I sing some of his music, and how I'm this young guy trying to, carry the torch of this timeless music. And in the middle of the show, I was sitting in the first row. Tony looked at me. I guess he recognized me. He pointed me out, and he put his hand out to shake my hand.
Did you wash your hand after that? Or you
I still haven't washed it. No, yes, I did wash it, unfortunately. But I would love to meet him just talk to him and maybe get some advice on how to make a career out of this thing, and let him know that there's somebody my age who refuses to let this music die. And I guess the other people would be like a Michael Bublé, much younger, kind of does his own thing on those standards and throws in some of his contemporary pop songs. And then also somebody like a Paul Anka, who's been around for a long time, still doing this thing and sounding better than ever. So I guess those are the three.
Hopefully we can help you, or I can help you.
Thank you,
before we go, right, I just want to show some of the audience some of your performances.
Sure.
I know you have a few coming up. We have some Christmas events.
Really looking forward to those. Always such a good time.
So many events. I mean, it's
keeps me connected to my faith too, which is really important to me. Kind of coming full circle as a young Brooklyn Italian Roman Catholic Italian American, so it's really cool doing a lot of work for the church and
we love having you.
The station.
And I hope you enjoyed this episode, Charlie. I'm so happy to actually sit down and get to know you a little bit more. Is there any way our audience can, or maybe it's who's that, a Paul Anka or Michael Bublé can get in contact with you? Do you have a website?
Yes, for sure. Please follow my website at www.charlieromo.com. You can like my Facebook page, Charlie Romo. Keep up with me. I would love to see you at a show sometime.
Thank you, Charlie. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, man.
God bless.
God bless.
Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Always remember, you have the ability to inspire and evangelize through your words and actions. Till next time.
Amen.